This podcast was recorded in front of live studio cats.
Hello and welcome to Against the Algorithm. My name is Malik. I hope you're having a fantastic day. And as you can clearly tell from how the audio quality sounds, no, I did not fix that audio issue I talked about in last week's episode, but we're still going to make it work. The audio in the podcast recording or the interview itself is still fine. So this will be real short, real quick. If you're new to the podcast, what I do is I talk to cool, awesome creatives about their work they do and their creative journey. And this week is a special treat. It's a little full circle. When I first started the podcast, it was just about music. We know this. One of the first bands I interviewed was an awesome band from out of LA called QBomb. They're hyperpunky. Their demo EP just dropped. And it was just a cool conversation, just getting to talk to an awesome band. And if you kind of know the lore that has led to so many opportunities and so many friendships, part of that conversation has been part of the reason I ended up working on Creative Block, Jellybox Studios. And the lead singer of the band, Izzy Deluxe, may or may not be known as Gene Goldstein when he's not yelling in QBomb, and has a bunch of cool stuff going on, such as being the founder of an animation studio, Jellybox Studios, such as may or may not being the lead singer of QBomb, being one of the former co-hosts of Creative Block, and even much more. So hot off the tour and coming back from that, we talked a little bit about the tour, we talked a little bit about the animation studio, we talked about a lot of stuff, and we also, on top of all of it, just caught up, because it's always so much fun to just get a little bit of a blast from the past and do a full circle moment. The show started with QBomb in Overway, so it's kind of cool to kind of come back to that and revisit it. So it's a really cool conversation. I had a great time. I hope you love it. And I'm going to stop talking so you don't hear the shitty mic anymore. But I'll catch you back on the end for all the house cleaning shit. But sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Gene Goldstein. So you can call him Izzy Deluxe. You can call him the founder of Jellybox. But the one thing you cannot call this man is lazy. Right now on Against the Algorithm, I have Gene Goldstein. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Malik. I don't know who Izzy Deluxe is, but that's not me. That is some other man.
You know, in the back of my head, I did not know if that bit was going to continue or not. Or I mean, less bit and more fact of life that Izzy Deluxe is a different person that you
we get confused on. We look very similar. We sound very similar. But you've never seen us in the same room, so you know. I'm giving myself away. I'm doing the opposite. I'm going the wrong direction, right? It's not even right. I've definitely been in the same room as him.
You're leaning in a little bit. You're doing the Steve Hardwell, Guy Fieri thing of just like,
yeah.
At this point, what you need to do is hire a paid actor.
Oh shit.
To be either Izzy or Gene, just one of them, and then boom.
Yeah, I should. Yeah, I've well, so yes, that is my music persona. And I've always kind of struggled with finding where the line is. But I think that it's the kayfabe, right? It's like that's usually what I say. It's the wrestling persona. But for my music stuff. So yeah, it is a chance for me to separate myself and my career and like who I am from the music side of things. So yes, I will break kayfabe just for you.
I appreciate it. Because this next part would be very, very awkward for me to explain if you did it. But for people who don't know, going all the way back to the beginning of the podcast, that was actually the first time we met. It was like around like episode 3 or 5. I interviewed like QBomb for the first time. That's how we met. And that led to just years of just like friendship, partnership, like working on Creative Block, working at Jellybox for a little bit. And now it feels like a full circle moment to have you on the podcast to talk about QBomb stuff, but also talk about your animation stuff and just get into all that nitty gritty now that the show is not just about singularly music. So I don't know. Thank you for taking the time, because I know you've been busy.
Oh, of course. No, yeah. No, we go way back. We've been lucky to hang out in person too. That was fun, bumming around New York. And I'm happy to. I love what you do. I think the show has always been great, and I'm glad to see that you're back at it. So
I was trying to think of some sort of gotcha to be like, you don't know this about Gene, but in person, like And I'm like, Gene is literally Gene. Like
Yeah, I
Gene,
don't hide
yeah,
much.
Gene, it's who you expect. But what I want to talk about, since we were kind of talking about full circle beginning of the moments, we talked
Yeah.
about QBomb.
Yeah.
So tour, I gotta bring it up. The band did its first ever tour, and thinking back to when we first talked, it was just an EP, its first impact, and
Mhm.
now you have a full-length studio album, a brand new
Mhm.
EP that we're going to talk about. But just having that major experience of just so many bands dream of doing that and being able to have that experience. What did it feel like for you to like finally be able to take Keep On the road?
It was amazing. You're right. Yeah, I forgot that we hadn't even put out our album when we first did our interview, and we I remember that because we packed 6 people into one Zoom call, um, and had to come up with. We were like, we have to have rules here, guys. Like, if you don't, if you don't have the talking stick, then you shut the hell up. Like, we had to like figure out a way to not talk over each other. But we literally had a talking stick. We had our, I think we used our Q bone, the plastic bone that we take everywhere. Um, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, we since then, yeah, we got signed to Ghost Pixel, Living Tombstones label. We put out Hyperpunk, our album, and yeah, we did this tour, and the tour was amazing. Like I'm very grateful to Living Tombstone for bringing us along. They've been amazing. They are very generous, and they've invited us to basically all of their tours, but we can't necessarily attend all of them because we have, like we said, 6 people in our band and everyone has their schedules. So like I wish we could have done all of them because we really got addicted to it. Like it's really fun, and we're touring at a level, we're kind of skipping the line a bit because I think like we've played a lot of local shows, like we've paid our dues in that regard, but like most of the time when bands tour, they have to kind of, they have to slum it a little bit. Like they have to sleep in a van, and like our drummer toured like that. He used to play in a lot of hardcore bands, and he's done that. And so even for him, this was like amazing. We have beds in like hotel rooms. That's not to say that we didn't slum it, because we did have the first tour leg. We were all still figuring out, including Living Tombstone, and we ended up staying in like the worst motels you can possibly imagine. Like smells like cigarettes, cigarette burns, blood on the wall. Like
What?
I'm not kidding. There was some real scary spots that we stayed in where we were like, lock the doors. Like we were like, everybody like stay on alert. And it was a motel. There was a motel we stayed in that had it was like a front door and a back door, which I've never seen. So it was like a block of rooms, and then you could come in on either side. So I'm like, cool, 2 points of entry for me to get stabbed and robbed. And there was like some dude with like pit bulls just like walking around outside all morning. We could hear them, and we were like, I don't want to leave this room. I don't want to be in here either, but I don't want to leave this room. So we learned a lot. And we also kind of yeah, we learned a lot. We figured out how to tour as we were doing it, which is usually how it goes. I think you kind of you're learning as you're going. And so like, but we had a really good synergy like between us for sure. The band knows each other so well, so we would very like automatically kind of delegate things. Like everybody would grab a task. I was mostly just trying to keep things, herd the cats, trying to keep everyone together and everyone calm. But everyone's great. And because Living Tombstone was a headliner, like we had to make sure that they were always they had the space, because their production's insane. Like they
Yeah.
have these costumes, they have techs, they have costume techs, like they have a whole crew. And so we were just usually like trying to stay out of their way, like jump on, do our set, jump off, and like leave. Like we were trying to give them space for all of their stuff. And by the time we did our, what was the last one? We did some SoCal dates. Those were really smooth. And then we did Texas, and Texas was like smooth as butter. Like it was very easy. Um, One of our shows got canceled. Our last show got canceled, the one in Dallas, because we had COVID breakout in Living Tombstone's camp, and so it was like, man, nothing you can do. But it was really fun, and yeah. So it we got the bug, man. Like we want to do it again. But for anybody listening, like that's in a band, touring is expensive as hell, and I think it's gotten harder over the years because, well, everything is more expensive, but it's like it's really hard to make a profit. And like, we did all right on merch, but we were also playing to Living Tombstone's crowd. So if we were having to headline, that's a whole other challenge, and that's one that we're going to try to solve in the next year. Is like, how can we do this? And the answer is really just like, I don't think we're there yet. I think we have some plans to try to grow our fan base more so than anything, because on paper it's just like it does not make sense to tour as a headlining act. So we'll see. It was a very unique, maybe once in a lifetime experience. I think we'll probably do more tours with Living Tombstone, but I don't take it for granted. Like most people don't get to tour like that. Like it's very generous what they're doing, taking us along on this very like professional tour,
Absolutely. And I love that you were like, tour is great. Also, we had to keep one eye open every single day on the East Coast. And
keep a knife fun.
Also, it's the most quintessential East Coast thing ever, that the East Coast is like the one that you got to be afraid of. It's like New York or New Jersey.
It wasn't Jersey. It wasn't Jersey. It was.
Oh, it wasn't Jersey?
It wasn't Jersey. It was Jersey and DC. So like you kind of expect it.
Fair.
Yeah, it was, and it wasn't even. The thing is like there's probably amazing parts of town, but we were just staying like the seediest motels. Every city has them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so I wanted to ask, because you kind of touched on a little bit of like the skipping line portion of just doing the SoCal shows, but in terms of creating a set list, so when it comes to doing the shows from just kind of like the local shows to the more touring shows, like what is the process when it comes to how you tool a set list, especially when you're going in as openers? And like, while people definitely know you because the Living Tombstone and the QBomb fan base has overlap, winning over people potentially who might not know QBomb.
Yeah. Yeah, we built the set list for this specifically around like people have not heard us yet. And some people might have, so we have to kind of balance that out. And like for those who know Hyperpunk and have heard it, if you haven't, check it out. It's streaming on all streaming services. But I always kind of like had the live show in the back of my mind when I was writing the songs, just because I think that it's more fun for me to write in a visual sort of way, in an audience facing kind of way. And so like, we have an intro track called Buzzkiller that I really like starting the set with. At some point it'll phase it out, but considering this was a, audience that has never seen it, we don't really do that anymore in LA. We don't start with that song anymore. But everywhere else, I was like, well, we gotta do it once. Like we have to play, these cities once and start with that song, because it's meant to be an introduction to the band at large. And then from there it was like, okay, well, got to do everything's fine early, because if anybody knows a song, that's the one they probably know. We have 2 million streams to date. So it's like they're probably going to want to hear that. And then it was like peppering in stuff that people would know. So like we have a Threshold cover from Scott Pilgrim. So it was like third, I think. And then people lost their shit. It's like if they're like, I know this is great. They get to hear Sex Bomb live, which is like, I think, a fun experience to bring to people. When the fuck else are you going to be able to hear it?
Exactly.
And so we did that. We have another cover that we're going to release soon. I guess it's not a secret because the set list is everywhere. But we have a Taylor Swift cover that we've been playing a little later in the set. We did our EP that we just can't. It's like when you start to analyze, like, we just dropped this 3-song EP, Exhaustion Engine, that we had to play for our sake, but also to promote it. And we only have 30 minutes. So it's like, it starts to fill up quick. And then it's just working backwards from like, where do we want to finish? Poison Pop is a really good finisher. Poison Pop has this really good fake out ending. It's a lot of fun. It's very high energy. And then it's like, well, what's left? And we had to do the singles, because again, people are most likely to know those songs. And so it filled up quickly. And then it was like, okay, well, that's the set. Like there were some shows where we didn't play Taylor Swift because we hadn't gotten efficient enough at playing through it. And so we had to drop one. It was that one. So some of the cities never got to hear it, and that's a shame. I feel bad about that, but
That's a
it's a
reason why
tight.
you go back to just perform
That's
that
right.
song and then leave.
That's right. It's a tight 30, you know. So we were like, ah, shit. I don't think we have time. But by the end of it, we got so good at it. There's an interesting thing that happens, and I'm sure anybody that's done touring can relate to this, where it's like in the beginning, the part of the fun is in the chaos of figuring it out. And as you get more familiar with the set and touring and everything, it becomes easier. But it starts to lose the thrill a bit. And so there's this peak, you know, I think that probably happens eventually. I don't think we ever hit it. But there's probably a peak where the routine starts to outweigh the fun, because now you're on autopilot and suddenly it's work, and then it starts to just not be as fun. I think it takes a long time to get to that point. I don't think we were even close to that, but I could feel it. I could like see it happen eventually, you know, and that's where I think a lot of bands start to burn out, because it's just the grind of like, we're in a new city, we got a sound check and we got to play, and then we know what songs we're going to play, and then we're done. And then you get on a bus or a plane or whatever, you know, and so it's interesting. It's just, it was interesting to live that and experience it.
Absolutely. I was going to ask, when it comes to that, it's like, are you guys constantly thinking about ways to like stave that off as long as possible? Because I know, like, for example, like Fall Out Boy, Fall Out Boy mentioned,
Yep.
it has to happen once.
Yes.
But they've been doing like adding new songs in the set list and rotating like a Magic 8 Ball song. And so like having new things to mix it up, so it's not just the same set list, and adding new routine, it's like really like rejuvenated like the band and like the fans in a way, and that's like one way to kind of mention it. And so like you said, the band QBomb's nowhere near that yet, but is it something where like in the back of your head, like eventually do you feel like rotating set lists or like finding new ways to keep the show fresh so that the group feels like, okay, like we're not going to get in that point where it's just like, okay, let's do the trick and then go to the next city.
Yeah. I definitely, I mean, a lot of the bands that I see live, like, you know, you'll look up on like Setlist FM or whatever it is, and they'll change it up because, yeah, you have to. I never heard it referred to as Magic 8 Ball, but I like that. Because I saw Muse once, and I've seen them a couple times, but when I saw them the first time, they had these monitors like in sort of a half circle shape around them on stage, and they had a moment where it was like, what song are we going to play next? And it was like a roulette ball, and it's like, and it was like Newborn and something else. I was like, Newborn. I was like, please, I need this shit. And it landed on Newborn, and I was like, yeah. And it's like, it's fun for the audience because you feel like you won. You know, it's like a literal like, and I don't know if that's staged. It's probably staged. You know, they're probably playing Newborn every show.
Well, the way you explained how music is, it's more or less the same thing where like Pete goes up and is like, hey, should we call it a fucking night? And then he's like, and then they both be like, ask again. He's like, and be like, maybe we should play one really old one. And they'd be like, all signs point towards yes. And then boom, they go into the, so kind of like the same tone. So like as you were explaining, I'm like, yeah, like if more bands do these surprise moments, they just feel so genuine, so cool. And it's just like, it, like you said, like everyone feels like they're winning just from like getting something so unique.
It is spectacle, you know. I think that like I've seen a lot of shows, I'm sure you have too, and it's like it's a shame how many bands don't realize that it's theater at the end of the day, and it's like they just go up and play and jam. And like different bands will have different priorities. Like I've never seen King Gizzard, but I bet that people that go to see King Gizzard are happy just to see King Gizzard play. They're not like that concerned because they are very, you know, jammy. But I love theatricality, and I love spectacle. And so like, yeah, shit like that is great. Cause it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, you have, it's, and maybe you can segue into other shit that I do, but it's like, I am a visual person, and I'm a storyteller and all these things outside of music. So it's like, I like to think of how the audience is perceiving it. I like to have a narrative, and even a show, however short it is, if it's 30 minutes, is a narrative. If we were headlining and we were doing our own tour, yeah, I think we would have to mix it up. I think we would have to have a little bit of variation for our own sake, but also for the audience's sake. And so, yeah, it would be great to, the way you're describing it, where Pete does that is awesome, where it's like, I think we're good, right? I think we're good. You know, it's like, actually, no, let's do this. And then it's a song that no one ever hears. because we have a discography now, and like that's crazy to me. Like I don't know. Like when we're rehearsing, it's hard to pick a song to even rehearse sometimes if we're not planning for a specific show. Cause like there's stuff that I love playing. Like Million AD is like the 6-minute fucking
Yeah.
epic that we wrote, this Rhapsody. And it's really fun to play. But it's 6 minutes. And we had there's so many like really positive experiences on tour where I want to say this was in San Diego, but I could be wrong. We had a guy who's probably about my age, who's a parent. That's what's
Yeah.
funny is that, and he brought his kid, I think. But either way, there was a guy about my age with a kid, and it was like he's like, tell him what song he wanted to hear, and he was like, I thought you would play 10 million AD. And I was like, Million AD, first of all, get it right. But no, I was like,
you're like, if you're gonna talk about my music, make sure it's correct, or don't talk to me at all.
If you're gonna request it, get it fucking right, kid. All right.
That's Izzy. That's Izzy talking.
That's Izzy. No, I was nice, but I was like, well, we would love to, but it's 6 minutes long, buddy. Like, I was like, we have 30 minutes, and he was like, okay, yeah, you guys were great. And it was so great. Like when there was kids coming up, like it was we heard a lot of, this is our first show. Like this, we've never been to a show before, which is like fucking insane.
Yeah.
But their crowd is young. Like Living Tombstone's audience is young. A lot of them are like younger than 20, if not younger, like straight up kids with like their big sound canceling headphones.
Yeah.
That's actually a relief when you see the sound canceling headphone. To be able to introduce that experience, seeing a live band to people is like nuts. Like I don't even remember what my first show was. Do you remember what your first show was?
Oh yeah. It was Panic at the Disco on brand in Central Park, and it was like right after a hurricane hit. Ooh, and I was remember like mid-hurricane being like, I don't care how bad it is. Like I'm going to see Panic at the Disco fucking tomorrow. I don't give a shit. Like in the back of my head. And so that was like my biggest.
How old
that
were
was
you?
My first one. I was like, this was like Vice and Virtue. So this is like probably 2012. Mm-hmm. So we're talking like maybe I was like 16.
Okay.
Like maybe like I was in high school.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember mine. I know Queens of the Stone Age was a really early one for me. It was sometime in high school. I went with my older brother. And like the Hives is a pretty early one, but Hives is great. But I don't remember. But either way, I know that those early concerts for me were like amazing. Got me wanting to do it myself. So like it was really cool. It was really great to see kids and teens and young adults come up and be like, hey, like this was amazing. You guys I've never seen a show before this. And so it's like they're here to see Living Tombstone, they're an electronic dance act. It's different. It's poppier. And so we're going up and showing them like punk and metal. And it's like, we're teaching them how to mosh. These kids don't know how to mosh. Like,
wait,
so
okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a thing. We've learned this playing every TLT show and we've gotten used to it, but like the kids that grew up through COVID, and especially I think Living Tombstone's crowd, because they are very like, let's be honest, they're internet kids.
As two internet kids talking. Yeah.
Yes, they are indoor kids. And so they don't know how to be at a rock show.
Damn.
And it's not even like an indictment. Like they just don't know how, because they've never done it. Nobody's taught them. They've never been to a show. They haven't eaten shit. So like we would go to shows and we would see a pit happen and we could choose whether or not to engage with the pit. They don't feel comfortable with it. There's no one there to even start the pit.
Damn.
So like I would try and I'd be like, let's see a fucking pit. And like, they were like, no,
what's a pit?
Like they were just, they don't know. They didn't want to touch each other, but they also just didn't want to cause harm. So I'm like, like it's like, it's cute, but it's like, come on.
I feel like there's so much online. If you aren't really into punk or like rock, like your perception of the pit's like the fucking wall of death.
I
Like
think so.
like if you haven't heard of a pit, like you equivalently think like the head like the front man's telling you to fucking kill someone
I
basically.
think so. I think they're a little scared. And like we tried finding things. We started doing this thing. We only got to do it at one show. But we bought a bunch of pool noodles at like a Walmart and cut them all in half so they were shorter. And then this was only we only got to do this at the I want to say the Houston show. Or no, Austin. We got to do this at the Austin show. We at one point, I think it was during Threshold, I just chucked a bag of these pool noodles into the crowd, and I was like, I want to see like a lightsaber fight. It was like a TikTok that we saw. And we were like, let's do that. And so we threw them into the crowd, and they just like grabbed them and then just like wiggled them around. And I was like, God
Guy,
damn it.
what? Oh
Fuck.
my! I thought you were literally gonna say, and they went nuts. No,
No,
whoa,
no, they didn't get it.
guys.
Hit each other.
Yeah,
Cause harm.
I'm like, literally, you threw them a safety wheel. Like you, like
I
you
threw them safety wheels. I threw them. It was literally a pool noodle, and they were still like, "No, you'll just wiggle them." And I'm like, God. But you know, so it's like it's a weird thing, right? Because it's like I think they just don't. They don't have the urge to express themselves in that way that millennials and I think that there's plenty of gen like zoomers and maybe even gen alpha kids that are still going to want to mosh and whatever, but it's a different kind of person that's going to do that. And I think it's just the crowd that we're playing to, because I feel like people going to I don't know, fucking, this is probably a bad example because there was a trampling, but like a Travis Scott concert, you know, like
Yeah.
even if they're 20, they're still gonna throw down, but as tragically we've seen. But yeah, I think it just depends on who you are and kind of like what scene you're a part of. So that might just be the crowd that we're playing to, but it is interesting, and it's something that I didn't expect until we were playing a few shows with TLT, and I was like, all right, everybody, I want to see fucking war, you know, and like nobody is like, nah, we'll just keep bobbing our heads. But there was an interesting there was a thing that happened where like somebody came up to me after a show. They were older, like, you know, early mid 20s, and they were like, you should tell us to move around more. Like you should tell us what to do more. And it was like an interesting, I was like, really? I was like, I don't want anybody to like hurt themselves. Like I don't want to like promote violence.
Yeah.
But they were like, no, like this generation doesn't, they need to be told what to do. Like they need to be given instruction. And I was like, okay, interesting, heard. And I started doing that more. Like I started being like, jump, like yelling at people and like getting that, like just commanding them. And it worked. And the more confident I was doing that, and the more I locked in, they listened. And so by the end of it, like it's a good fucking feeling, man. Like you're commanding, you know, hundreds, if not almost thousands of people, and they respond. And so I learned that it's like, nah, they have to be told. And even TLT like encountered that, and they talked to me about that, and they're like, how do you get them so fired up? I'm like, you got to tell them, because I had learned that by that point. I was like, you got to tell them what to do. And so we were all learning. We were all learning how to engage the audience as well. So it's interesting.
Absolutely. And like I totally get what you mean. And like I think it's gonna be the last point about music before we shift over to other things. But I think with us, like we knew when like us going to shows, we know inherently just like, oh, like this is like a release. This is like a moment to have fun, move around. But like you said, if there are people who haven't really gone to shows during COVID, like they don't know that it hasn't been imbued in them to be like, hey, this is a safe space. Like if someone falls, you pick them up. Like as long as you're not hurting anybody, and as long as like you keep the energy positive. That's my ringtone.
Is that your okay?
And
as long summoned by Zordon.
um, as long as the energy is positive, as long as it's a good space, safe space, like go fucking nuts. Like that, like the fucking Mystery Skull show when he was doing a anniversary show. I went and I literally like I went with one of my best friends from like over 10 years, and he literally was like, I have not seen you dance that much in your entire life. And I'm like, yeah, no, because I know when I'm here, this is the hour where you get to see that. Any other time, not here. gonna go fucking nuts.
It is, yeah. It's I think that it's like it's a chance for people to be outside themselves, right? Like that's always been the appeal of a live show to me is even though you're not the one on stage, you're putting yourself up on stage with them. Like I think that's always been the fun. But that's why everyone sings along and it's like, you know, it's a sense of community and connection with everybody, but it's like your voices are one and all this stuff. So it's like you get to yeah, like you said, like you know, let loose and like you're kind of but people have different definitions of what that means. And so if they're if this is the kind of crowd that's already kind of introverted and closed off and like they're mostly exist in their own heads and they're online and in these sort of online spaces, like they might be losing their shit
Yeah.
internally. And they were. I learned to read the crowd differently. You know, I think I also had to read them differently. And because then we would do these meet and greets and people would come up and like sweaty, like, you guys are fucking amazing. Like, that opened up my third eye. Like, they would be like, so like, and I'm like, I didn't see you guys moving much. But they were within the limits of their own comfort. So it's like, it's just different. At a hardcore show, you know, these are people who are going to be so much, it takes them so much more to let loose because they're just probably naturally like just more, you know, maybe not aggro, but like they're just more intense people. And so like, yeah, it's just different. Yeah, really, really great experience. We're definitely going to do more, just to be determined as to what that looks like. But we really loved touring.
Sure. So enough about music. Like this is not a music podcast anymore. Fuck music. Fuck Izzy Deluxe. Fuck QBomb. Fuck Exhaustion Engine, which is now streaming on all platforms. You're like, wait.
I was like, hold on, don't fuck that.
You're like, no, kidding. Please stream all that. No, don't fuck them. You know, this is why it's so bad when I don't do a podcast for so long, because then all this happens. Like transition's horrible, but what's not horrible is Jellybox Studios, which is now around the time we're talking about this, a little over a year in existing in the world. I mean, so I feel like first question off the top of the head is just like, how does it feel like a year into creating this animation studio for people who don't know what it is?
It's a lot of work. It's been doing remarkably well for where I thought it would be. And a lot of that is due to the shorts that we've been doing to raise awareness about the Animation Guild. A big part of our growth is those shorts. But I think you know, I started this thing, like I've had the name for a long time, and it came from a gallery that I was in. Like it was it was a gallery in Japan for like Famicom cartridges. So it was like fake game cartridges. And so I did a little fake Famicom game, and they needed a studio name. So I was like, Jellybox. Like I just like kind of whipped it up, and I was like, wait, that sounds good. And this is in like 2018 or something, 2019, and it stuck with me. And so I started doing these shorts, no XP. You know, it was just a way for me to take control of my destiny a little bit. Like I had done development, I had done the studio grind, trying to get a show picked up, and things were really looking bad. Like and they still are bad. But you know, Planet Panic was in development for 2 years. It was this short that I did, and it got passed on. And so I was really bummed out, and in a way of coping, I started Creative Block. You know, that was the first step to grieving. And then you joined, and it was a great time while I was on it. And then I wanted to, part of the reason why I moved on from that is like I wanted to get back into animating and making stuff again, and listening to other people talk about it was just making me jealous. And so I was like, I need to walk away from this, and like I'm gonna start doing my own thing. And so no XP was the beginning of that, and I was like trying to work backwards from like what is achievable with my limited time and energy. which made it easier to bring people on, because it was scoped down and it was, uh not cheaper, but cheaper. Like it
Yeah.
was affordable. I could bring people on and manage to still put these out every week. And then we did our Kickstarter, and so it was like originally Jellybox was going to be just sort of a name for the team. But I got laid off from the last job that I was at full time last July. One of those famous game company closures that happened. And so I was like, well, shit. I knew it would be a while before I got another job. I still haven't. Not full time at least. And I was like, I need to do something with my time while I have it. And I knew that it would take at least 6 months just to figure out how to make this function. And then probably another 6 months to build up momentum. And then from there, things would start to make sense. And it's like clockwork. Like it was like I started the studio, legally officially in like July, um, August, something like that. Uh, and I was like, hey, we're a studio, and this is something I do want to talk about because like I think that like anyone can say they started a studio, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that it's easy to say. It's like starting a band. It's like you can say like starting a band. Here's our Twitter account. Check us out. And I tweeted about this not too long ago because I think that it's a thing that I see that's kind of frustrating, where people say like, I want to start an animation studio, and I don't think you do. I think most people say that, but it's a business. You're starting a business, and people will start a studio. They'll come up with a name. They'll come up with a logo. All that fun stuff. And just like starting a band, it's like then you have to play songs. You have
Yeah.
to learn how to play instruments. You have to learn how to play in front of people. You have to book shows. You have to do all these things, and then you have to make money. And then you have to pay people. And with a studio, even more so than with a band, like you have to figure out how to do finances, taxes,
Yeah.
project manage, people manage. And especially younger people that are in their like early 20s, that seems like this alluring thing. Like you have a studio and you can make whatever you want. Aggressively not true.
Yeah.
Because things cost money. And I almost want to do like a whole video essay about this because I at some point, because I think that it's a critical part of the conversation that a lot of people in the animation industry, like in the fandoms, like aggressively misunderstand. Having a studio doesn't give you a big sack of money to make things. It's just a name. It's just a name. And then maybe you have some friends who are helping you out. Maybe everyone's willing to work for free for a while just to build the thing up. But you gotta make money eventually. And like, unless you get a big hit and suddenly you're raking in bucks from Patreon or merch or whatever, which is very hard to do. It's very rare that things escalate to that point that you can actually get profit from it. Most of the time, you're scraping together. And so Jellybox was always meant to be like a for hire client, facing sort of studio, but we use the profits to try to fund our own projects. And to me, that's how these things usually happen. On a bigger scale, it's one for them, one for you. Like it's a pretty typical thing. So I want people to understand when they think about this stuff that it's like the money doesn't come from nowhere. So it's still either it's crowdfunding and you're crowdfunding your own project that people don't really know about or care about yet. Or you're using the profits from the client work that you do, but then that's pennies, and you probably aren't paying yourself. I haven't really paid myself anything, and I'm pretty vocal about it because I think people need to understand that it's like any business. You don't really pay yourself the first year, maybe the first 2 years, because if I want other people to get paid for the work they do, and yes, I'm eating into my savings. Yes, I'm kind of just doing hours and hours and hours and hours of work for nothing, but it's my business at the end of the day. So it's like, I'm okay eating the cost as long as everyone else is happy. Because they're helping this thing grow. So I want to pay them for their time. But that shit's hard. That's a hard thing to do. And unless you've been doing it for a while and you've had project management experience, it is so overwhelming. And I think a lot of people would have a really hard time with that. People who think they would want to run a studio would have a really hard time with it. because it takes like choices and hard choices and sacrifices, and you had to have kind of eaten shit quite a bit in your and been on both sides of it, been a freelancer, been a contractor, and then also led a team, had to have had a group project or two in your day to know how hard it is when one person is not pulling their weight and you have to step in. It's that kind of shit. I've been that so many times in school and college. And that's the kind of personality you need to have when you're running things, is know how to get shit done, know how to have a tough conversation, know how to manage finances, know how to manage a schedule. So it's a long answer and it's a rambly answer, but it's been really great. I'm really happy with the work we're doing, but it's like a cautionary, like tread lightly, like everybody,
Yeah.
like it is a lot of work, especially with the way things are. The economy is not doing so great. Animation especially is not doing so great as its own bubble. And so like I picked a very bad time to start an animation studio, but also a great time, because I think that starting something from scratch when everything else is crumbling is actually maybe the best time, because we now have an infrastructure. We are able to take on clients. We have some very exciting stuff that we're in talks to do. Some like music video stuff. Like we're ramping up. Now that we have done that work, the first 6 months came and went. We kind of just established ourselves, and then the last 6 months was the Animation Workers Ignited shorts, and some other client work that we've done, and No XP has been going strong. So now it's like, okay, we're real. This is real now. We're passing 100K subscribers, followers, like it's looking like a real fucking thing. So now it's just like when clients approach us, we know how to budget. We know we have a pool of talent that we can pull from. And now it's just like a matter of persistence and patience and letting it all grow at a natural, organic way and not push it.
Yeah.
Because I think if when people start to push it too hard, that's when the crunch starts to happen, and the burning out. Like it's a balance. It's a tricky balance.
Absolutely. And like you said, it was like a long, rambly answer. It wasn't, because I feel like this, like you said, this is stuff that animation fans or people don't know behind the curtain. People just think, hey, you can create something. People see No XP and it's like, oh, cool, he got to make his show. But like the amount of work, the effort, as someone was like behind the scenes for a little bit and saw like how much work was going into just making sure that like the Kickstarter, working on getting the show rolling once the money was there, it's a lot. So being able to maintain that and sustain that, and looking ahead, like you have to, not just for No XP, but also, like you said, for other projects you're working on, the people you're working on. So I think it's a totally valid answer. It's an important answer to have.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And, for the audience, like, Malik was helping us out with social media stuff early on. And it was because it's a lot of work. Like, hosting is a lot of work. People don't know how much it is maybe until they have to do it. You have to be on it. And at this point, we have two people kind of tag teaming our socials, because it's a lot of work. And we post a short every week, and at least one No XP every week or so. But there's a lot of other stuff, just like content, the fucking big C content, like you always need something. And so, you got to have people helping out. And so it's not enough. It's never enough. That's the shitty thing, is it's like, it's never enough. And it's not even, people say it's like, as long as you're consistent, it's like, no, that's not even true. It's not true, because everybody's consistent. Everybody on socials is doing the exact same thing. It's figuring out how to make things sticky. And that's like a new word that somebody told me and that I picked up on. That is, it's a really difficult thing to try to explain to somebody that hasn't had to deal with, where it's like, how do you make a post? You could say it's engagement, whatever, but engagement is only one part of that. How do you make something sticky? How do you make something that people see and they want to share it? It stays with them. They come back to it. They follow you. it's tough without being douchey about it too.
Yeah.
Like being genuine and being that and pulling people in is very hard. Is a very hard thing to do.
Oh no, I'm still doing it because I have not learned my lesson, and my main day job is a social media manager.
Right.
And so I literally am going through this still every single day of like, it is so hard because also like especially with the animation community, I don't know why camera's gone blurry, but you don't need to see that. But it's so hard. Like you want to make sure you're being part of a community. You want to make sure you're engaging because like the other thing is if you are just constantly like, look at my thing, look at my thing, look at my thing, and you don't engage with others and everyone's just like, eh. And so that's like another tricky part of it, which is just like you said, those like the capital C content is way more important than people think. Cause that like if someone's like, oh, like I saw you from like this random tweet you made. It's like, yeah, someone had to put time into like figuring out the best way to say that so that like if you so happen to think about, okay, well, maybe let's look into this group more. I like what they said about that, or like the take. That's a lot of work.
A lot of work. I really the one that I always go to as an example is the Cult of the Lamb social media team because like the game's good. I like the game. Really great art direction. They clearly have a good team, but their social media is on point. Like it's so rare for a game account to have over 500,000 followers. I think they're at like 600 something.
Damn.
And I'm gonna look it up because I think they're getting close to 666, which would be great.
Oh, they got something planned for that. You know, like the social media person, they're
they have
salivating. There's a plan already in place.
Content. But they're really good, and kudos to them. Like the people that are running it, they clearly have a system, and so like they have artists on 611,000. They're definitely they're cooking. So they definitely they have a good system, and like I think that I applaud anybody that has figured it out. It's a lot of memes. It's a lot of like you don't want to be a meme lord either. So yeah, anyway, it's a hard balance.
You don't want to be a meme lord, but you also don't want to be a capital B brand.
Yeah. Oh, the brand. Yeah. Yeah. Silence brand. Like you don't want to like. There's like something recently. Yeah.
What was I gonna say? If someone posts that on your Twitter thread, you are utterly fucked.
Oh yeah.
You're utterly
I remember there was a thing I saw yesterday where I think it was Warner Brothers posted
the stop fighting thing. Yeah. Like,
yes. And people were like, you own the original character. Why are you using the fucking chubby puppy? Like, it made no sense. And it's silence brand. Like it's so embarrassing when it's like you couldn't even like pat yourself on the back. What are you doing? Yeah.
I'm like, you got something on a silver platter handed to you and you didn't fully go for it. It's whatever. Speaking of studios not knowing what the fuck they're doing, this feels like the perfect segue into the Animation Guild. So you mentioned it earlier that something that Jellybox has been taking on have been these shorts. You've definitely seen them with Adam Conover and Alex Hirsch, which is mind-blowing. I just want to know, just first of all, how, like you were talking about a lot of work and getting momentum and awareness, and then things start paying off, and you get something like that in your lap. Like, how does that happen to you guys? That feels like a very weird way to say that. I'm sorry.
No,
like,
no.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's very serendipitous. So a big key figure in that is Mike Rianda. He is a very successful guy who doesn't have the big name that Alex Hirsch or Adam Conover have, but he is instrumental in this. He was a director of Mitchell's versus the Machines. He was a big figure in Gravity Falls, very much like him and Alex ran that show. And he's a great guy. So I did a piece for him in 2020. He's a very passionate guy. He's very, sociopolitically minded. Like he really wants to make things better for the world in his way, like with whatever he has available to him. And so in 2020, he had me do a short little like get out the vote sort of thing. It was very anti-Trump, and I was happy to do it. And it was like a minute of animation in 2 weeks, which is like crazy. But he gave me a nice budget, and so I put together a small team and we cranked it out. I was working full time then too. It was not, but I think that I showed him like I can deliver. And so last December, and this is when the studio is only like 4 months or 5 months old. He reaches out. He's like, "Hey, man, like I want to make some shorts to raise awareness of the negotiations because we need more attention from the public, more than anything." And he's he wanted to take action in that way, and so we went back and forth a little bit, just trying to figure out what it was. And because he's so busy, like he couldn't be as hands on as I think he was hoping to be with these, and and he is very busy. And so I was like, you know what, hey man, like let me handle the producer side of this because I've been really enjoying that kind of work, um, which is just putting things together. It's
Yeah.
just making things happen. Um, and so between him and Alex Hirsch, I reached out to Alex as well. I knew that he was also passionate about the cause, and they pooled their money together. They gave us a budget for these shorts, so we're not affiliated with the guild. It's just this smaller group called Animation Workers Ignited that really care about the issues. We want to have a strong message that we can show people, and so it was just the two of them. And then, and Alex was happy to lend his voice as well. Very early on, we were talking about like, again, the stickiness. We were talking about like, how do we get people to pay attention to these? And somebody in the Animation Workers Ignited group, they said, well, I think I have access to Adam Conover. Like, I think that I've met with him. He's a big proponent of unions and guild, because he was so vocal during the SAG and the WGA strikes. We were like, I think that Adam would be down to volunteer his voice for this, and it was like instant. Like as soon as he got the email, he was like, "Yep, absolutely." So we were off to the races, and like I budgeted out, 8 shorts, which we are doing 8, so we have a few more from whenever this is being recorded, and yeah, we got lines from Adam, and the response was like astronomical. Like think I didn't think it would get close to where it is. Like the first short dropped and I think we got to like 1 million views and we were all like, yeah,
Yeah.
like fuck yeah. Then we get to the third one and it cracked like 11 million on Twitter. I think it was like 8 million on Instagram. We were like
Trending hashtags.
yeah. Oh yeah, multiple times. And so it's crazy. Like, and it's a good feeling, because I think it's like achieving what we set out to do, but like times 12, like
Yeah.
we were like, oh my God, like, and it put us on the map too, which is great. And now people know about us and, in the same space as like studios and, industry work. So it's really cool. But yeah, it's thanks to Mike, it's thanks to Alex, it's thanks to Adam for being a part of it. We have some really cool stuff planned for the tail end of these releases, just to keep the heat on, and I've been learning a lot about the promotion aspect of it, the stickiness, like seeing what people respond to and seeing how things get viral.
Yeah.
And recognizability is a big part of it. I think we knew this going in. We knew our task was to reach as many people as possible. So it was like pretty early on. We were like, we got to have a buckload of cameos.
Yeah.
We got to have voice actors that people recognize. We have to do X, Y, Z. I think a big part of it is Adam and Alex both either retweeted or were collaborators on Instagram, which like they have a lot of followers. So of course it spread, but that was part of the plan. Like it was have them use their followings to everyone's advantage. But it all worked. It all worked, and people have been very complimentary, and it's been getting a lot more eyes on the negotiations, and it helps. Like it helps because there's already so much unemployment and so few jobs that are available that at the very least we can point to the amount of people that are on our side, and that gives leverage in these negotiations. So
Absolutely. And you were starting to talk about it a little bit just now, and also very warrantedly, the shorts are out there, so please also watch them as well. So a way to educate yourself, but just kind of speaking to it a little bit, like why are these? I mean, I know, but just for people who might not be in animation or might not have their ear to the ground as much, why are these negotiations so important and so vital?
well, I mean, I think there's not a lot of people that would argue that the animation industry is like in maybe the worst place that it's ever been.
Yeah.
There has been a really big crunch on jobs, like a combination of constant fucking mergers. Studios end up being shut down, absorbed. And every time this happens, a lot of stuff gets canceled, a lot of jobs get cut. Um, we really struck a chord with people about the CN, the Cartoon Network Studios being dead, like being closed. And
that was heartbreaking. I'm sorry for cutting you
it's a
off.
combination. Yeah, it sucks. And like it's a combination of people genuinely didn't know and they're in denial. Because people were getting upset at us for, I mean, it's the internet, so it's gonna happen. But people were getting upset with us for saying like, it's not dead. It's actually true. It's like, please don't argue with the workers that are like not even in the building anymore. Like the building shut down. The building is gone. Starting with that. We're gonna start with that. You're already wrong. That does not exist. The studio doesn't exist as an entity. It is a floor in the WB building, which if you know anything about corporate mergers, and we've seen it happen time and again, eventually it will get distilled down to nothing. And it's happening in front of our eyes. They've stopped using the CN copyright on things. They shut down the website. Like this is how these things happen. And I predict that Nickelodeon will go through the same thing when over the next year or so with Paramount being bought by Skydance, right? Skydance?
Yeah,
Sony?
I think.
I forgot who ended up buying it. I'm tired of trying of keeping up who's buying who. And yeah, so it's because everyone's trying to consolidate, and they've lost so much money in the streaming wars. And the tragic thing is that like Netflix won. Netflix won the streaming wars by a mile. They're dominating, and Netflix had created a lot of jobs for a moment. There was a very clear bubble that had formed where they were flush with cash, and they poached a bunch of people from all over the studios, the best of the best in their eyes. Greenlit a bunch of stuff, and then when suddenly they realized that it was costing them too much to make works of art, which they weren't really promoting, they were not. No. Yeah, they weren't doing a good job of actually putting them in front of people's eyes. But they got cold feet and started pulling the plug on a bunch of stuff. They just said, fuck it. Nope. You know what works? Outsourcing to cheap studios in Europe and Australia and just grabbing licenses. Just buying up a license for a thing that exists that's made for cheap and putting it on there. Because it doesn't matter if it's good. It matters if there is a library and there's content. And that way, when people open up Netflix, there's always something new. It doesn't matter if it's good. It's just it's all for shareholders. They want to make the company seem like it's always growing for shareholders, and you don't really get good work from that. It's a short-term gain. And so Netflix ended up outsourcing a lot. They ended up shutting down their entire internal animation department. Basically, most of it's gone. And so they won, and then killed off a bunch of jobs, killed off a bunch of shows, so the studios who were competing are in shambles because they didn't win.
Yeah.
And then the studio that won also didn't create a job. So it's like the worst it could possibly be. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about AI also pulling away jobs, and it's absolutely an issue. Personally, I am less concerned with that than with the complete lack of oversight on all these companies playing with people's livelihoods. I think AI is the bubble as well. It's very clear that it is a whole lot of money being poured into a thing that's not going to be able to sustain itself. It creates no money. It costs so much more than it does than it generates. if you know anything about tech, anybody that's done any kind of, analyses of previous tech trends, like this thing's going to pop and it's going to pop hard and it's going to cause issues because so many companies have put so much money and resources into it. It's going to be a .com bubble all over again.
Yeah.
Speaking of Adam Conover, there's a great podcast that he does with Ed Zitron, who's a very finger on the pulse kind of tech guy, but he doesn't work in tech. So he's just really savvy about these trends. And it's very comforting listening to that podcast because he is like, this shit has happened time and again. And reading the signs, reading the tea leaves, it's so obvious that this is all going to implode. And to me, that's a comfort because AI will stick around. It is going to be a problem. And there does need to be regulation on it. There does need to be significant pushback. But I think everyone's ignoring the fact that there's nothing that's stopping studios from continuously just consolidating and merging. And that, to me personally, that's the bigger issue. But it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things that are all coming to a head. And so this year is when our contract is expiring. It has expired. They extended it a little bit for the negotiation because that's going to be ongoing. But it's a bad time. It's a really bad time for everyone that's working in animation. And so if we don't push back, if we don't get the gains that we need now, it'll be another 3 years before we can fight. And God knows how much worse things are going to get in that time.
Yeah.
And so we really have to put up a stand. We really have to defend ourselves and our livelihoods right now.
Absolutely. And sorry, I was just getting really into it from just what you're saying.
Yeah, it's again, big answer because it's a big issue. It's a complicated issue.
Absolutely. So in the bio of this episode, wherever you're listening to it, there will be some resources for ways to support. I'll get those from you. But just so there's ways to make sure that we're supporting people. If you love animation, if you love any show that you've seen that has moved you, it is in your best interest, not just as a consumer of the content of the work you enjoy, but also just being a decent fucking person and making sure that the people that make the thing you love get to eat, bare minimum. So check down below, check the Jellybox shorts out. We're not ending yet, but that sounded very much like an end, but I have a few more questions because that is a very stressful situation. And so we have the fast round, so we can end this on a little bit of a lighter note. You don't need to answer them fast. I don't know why I called them the fast round because it's just pre-prepared questions. They're not tailored to you. There might be one tailored to you. We'll see how it goes.
Shoot.
First one, very New York podcast because I'm a very New York person, so I might need to adjust this one. But Gene, what is your bodega / deli order? When you're going into the deli to get something to eat, what's the go-to thing that you're going to eat?
Oh, wow. I don't know. Cause I don't have that culture. We don't have that really. So it's what's my gas station snack? Maybe is the closest thing.
Yeah.
And I like candied nuts, honey roasted nuts of some kind. So I think that's my go-to on the road snack. When we were touring that, if we stopped at a gas station, we stopped at a Buc-ee's. Holy shit, dude. That's that's a vortex. It was stressful to be in a Buc-ee's. It is a Death Star. It was massive. And there was so many people. I think it was probably people coming out of church or because it was Texas, deep, middle of nowhere. And it was packed full of people. And I was like, I'm gonna get COVID from this. And I didn't, thank God. But it was I was this is probably where it happens. Not even the shows. But I ended up getting this little squeeze fruit pulp thing because I was I don't want to be in here anymore. I'm just grabbed something. I was this is stressful. But I like candied nuts, I think, or jerky. I think a good jerky is good,
I can vibe with that. My bodega order is give me a turkey sandwich, bag of chips, a bag of nacho Doritos, and a Coke Zero, and then a made. But if you want to talk about a place that gives me emotional whiplash when going to a restaurant, not a restaurant, but a store like that, Wegmans.
I've never been.
If you were ever in a Wegmans, there have been multiple times I have gone with partners and we did not eat before. And by the end, you sit in the food court, just quiet, slightly seething, and just like I'm very sorry. I don't know what happened. We should have ate before. We'll do that next time. Like both of you, and it's not just one person. Everyone gets stressed if you don't know what you're like. Last time I went with my girlfriend Alex, I was rushing through it because I knew. And she was like, "Why are you rushing?" And I'm like, "I don't know why." And then halfway through, both of us are like, "Ah!" So,
God. Is it like a bunch of different food places, or what is it?
it's like a food spot, but it's also like a pharmacy in like one big point.
Oh.
Like it's like if you ever look at a Wegmans or see one, it's massive because there's like a whole big food section. There's a whole big just kind of like produce section, and then there's a whole giant pharmacy, and that's the equivalent of like their subs are amazing. Like their food's really good. The food court, the options they got are nuts. But yeah, if you are ever in upstate New York or in New York City now too, I think Connecticut has some spots. Wegmans, go there. It's amazing, but it's also nuts.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. Yeah, this is crazy.
So next question, and I feel like you'll lean a little bit more towards, not lean towards it, but you'll vibe with it, which is backs against the wall.
Yes.
What animal do you think you could fight?
Okay. Probably a lot of them, but where do I draw the line? Who it's more like, where do I get fucked up, right? It's like what animal. I don't
like,
even think
what's
it's
the most
that
impressive animal that you can fight? And I think like what's the most impressive one you can do? And like after that, you're cooked.
I feel like a cat could fuck me up if it really wanted to, you know. Like
100%.
They got claws. Like I don't want to fuck with claws. I think I could fight like a beaver.
That's the first time.
I think a beaver seems soft. I don't think they, you know. I think I could. I wouldn't want to. I love beavers, but
yeah,
squishy. A sloth is slow, you know.
Yeah.
I think I could punch a sloth. I think I could take on a sloth.
You can punch a sloth and run.
I could punch a sloth and run. Yeah, I think, but it's like anything that has claws or teeth. Like I don't know, man. They're gonna get those teeth in me like a wolf or something. I don't want to fuck with that. I'm getting out of there.
And for that, I'm out.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I don't. So I don't know. Something small. I don't think I can last in a cage with anything above a beaver.
So the last question I have is for the season of the podcast.
Yes.
I wanted to do something cool and a little bit different where we make a little mixtape. So every single guest who comes on adds a song to that mixtape. So at the end of the season, we have like this wide selection of songs from everyone who's been on. And so I'm asking you, what song would you want to add to the mixtape?
Ooh, boy. Let me open up my Spotify and see what I've been listening to.
And I can tell you what a few of the other guests have put on, if that will help you.
I want to hear.
So I had V on. V had Windshield Smasher by Black Moth Super Rainbow.
Yeah, they do like Black Moth Super Rainbow.
We got Alex Brightman said Circadian Rhythm by Sophia James.
That's cool. Just still fucking okay. Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, that felt like me a long way for me to be like, Alex Brightman was on the pod.
Yeah.
That whole situation was fucking nuts. That like, and he's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, he recommended Circadian Rhythm, which is a jam. I have Musician by Porter Robinson, because of course I do. And then Alex is helping with stuff. So she put Mama's Eyes by Met on. So that's kind of the vibe. Those are the songs we've got going on.
I am gonna put Tokyo Calling by Adarashi Gakko.
Oh,
that's been a banger. If not that, the close second is a song from that same album called Essa Hoisa, which is sick as fuck. But that's the more, Tokyo Calling has a video and shit. Like it's a single. I'm seeing them in September and I'm very excited. It's really dope.
They are so nuts. I love them. Like first time I started Tokyo Calling. Yeah. I don't even know how. I don't remember how I found out about them, but like I know my life is different now. just because because I know they exist and like the music makes fucking dope.
I kept like floating around them. Like I knew of their existence. I think I like didn't quite get it at first. And then we started passing it around in QBomb, our QBomb chat. Like there was like a dance choreo video that they did that we were all like, oh man, this is sick. And then I went down a rabbit hole and I listened to like all of their shit. And I think, which show was it? There was one show that we had a pretty nice green room with like a big screen in it. And I just put on their Coachella set beforehand. And so we were just in there like doing like the dance moves with them, like getting pumped up.
Oh my God.
And so I don't remember what city it was though. I think it was Santa Ana. And so when we were like, we got to do more choreographed dance moves, man. And so like, I feel like that show in particular, like you can tell that we were like really into Outer Chicago because we were all just like doing like these like moves. I don't know. It was funny. But yeah, they're great. And like they have a similar energy to QBomb, which I really like, where it's like, you can't really pin a genre on them. It's like pop, but it's not like they're kind of, you know,
there's like pop, there's like rap elements in there. There's like, there's like some rock in there. Like it,
and yeah, there's some rock. Yeah. And like but it's still very like culturally Japanese, which is cool. Like they have a very strong, like you can see the roots of Japanese music in there and like enka and, but the personas and like everything I think through them and touring in general, we like realized kind of where we need to head. They were actually, the reason why I bring them up is because I think they were a pretty like big moment for us where we were like, we need to do this more. Like we need to, and hopefully in the months to come, it'll become apparent what we're trying to kind of do with QBomb. But like, yeah, we realize that like we want to be more like this. Like we want to have the personalities on display because they do it so well. So yeah, Adarashi Gakko.
And with that, we have laughed, we've cried, we did it. We've reached the mountaintop. And Gene, thank you so much for taking the time
You're so welcome
to come on. It's always been a fucking pleasure to like just talk. Like we talk and like message back and forth not as often as we used to, but still like it's so awesome to just catch up and like have like these long talks about just like music, art. And so thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yeah, I was telling Malik, I was like, I didn't see you at the New York show, man. Where were you? And you were like, I like, you know, tickets sold out really fast. That show sold out crazy fast, the New York one. And I was like, bro, we're family. Like you could have asked, we would have let you in.
I know, but like the thing is like I feel bad because like even with people I know I could like walk up and be like, and I'd be like, Malik, I'm still like, I don't want to bother them.
Come on.
Like
next time you will be on the list for sure.
Gotcha. So. I will. So the second the dates come out, I'm gonna be like,
yeah. I want to go back to New York too. Like that was one of my favorite. That was like top 3 shows.
And that was my conversation with Gene. Gene, thank you so much for being on the show again. It was so awesome to catch up. It's always a fun time to just shoot the shit. As you can guess, if you want to keep up with all things Gene, there's a few ways you can do that. Follow Jellybox Studios on social, follow NoXP, follow QBomb, and also if you want to support all the stuff we're talking about with the animation industry, follow the resources we have down below for Animation Workers Ignited. If you like what you heard and you want to keep up and hear new episodes of this podcast, you can follow us on Instagram at Against the Algorithm, all one word, Twitter at HEA_pod, or you can press subscribe or follow on whatever podcast streamer you're currently using. You're already here, so it's one extra button. I believe in you. But with all that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you back here next time. Stay gold. Peace.